I made a prediction around halfway through last year that we would see more scandals emerging, particularly scandals on the national level that could compromise threats to national security. And I kind of made this prediction based on the fact that Uranus has been transiting through the last signs of Taurus into the sign of Gemini, a sign that is associated with communication and the transmission of information. And we have indeed already seen this come to fruition, especially with regards to the sort of group chat that was leaked, where high ranking government officials were talking about their military actions, and they added a journalist to the chat on accident. Now, if you didn't already know, Uranus is set to officially switch signs from Taurus into Gemini on July 7th, and this is a pretty monumental shift considering the fact that the two outer planets have also already switched signs. Pluto has switched into Aquarius and Neptune has switched into Aries. So not only are we getting these kind of three outer planets switching signs in rapid succession, but if you'll notice something as well is that these three outer planets are going from signs of a negative polarity into signs of a positive polarity, right? So Pluto was in Capricorn, and then Pluto switched to Aquarius. And Neptune was in Pisces, and then it switched to Aries. And likewise, Uranus was in Taurus, and now it is moving into Gemini. Positive and negative polarity can also refer to sort of like masculine, feminine in some instances, in some circles. So yeah, we're getting this really drastic change in energy and this really like increase in energy almost, and it feels very volatile. The word that comes to mind is volatile. Even just thinking about Uranus in isolation, Uranus, the past 3 times that it has entered into Gemini, has been associated with conflict, right? So Uranus and Gemini coincided with the American Revolution, the American Civil War, as well as World War II, which America was heavily involved in. So even with just Uranus, we're seeing this like really like aggressive energy coming through. And not only this, but the United States, their natal chart also has Uranus in Gemini. So in the next few years, the US will actually be going through something called a Uranus return. A return is just when the planet essentially gets to its natal position once it's done a full rotation of the chart. Uranus returns happen every 84 years or so. And so that's happening, but also the US recently went through a Pluto return, with Pluto hitting 29 degrees of Capricorn, that last degree of Capricorn, and that actually coincided to when Donald Trump first got elected, or I guess got elected the second time, you know. But what's also very interesting regarding this current conflict is that the US and Iran also have Virgo in the 9th house. So if you've been paying attention, maybe you've noticed that Mars has entered Virgo. Mars is the sign of, or the planet that governs over aggression, assertion. In astrology, there's also correlation between the planet Mars and the god Mars, right? Mars was the god of war, the Roman god of war, whose Greek counterpart was Aries. And so this is very interesting because the 9th house is actually the house in a mundane natal chart that is associated with international relations. So the god of war, the planet representing the god of war in each instance, has entered into the house associated with international relations in both cases, in both the charts of the US and Iran. And the question that I'm kind of left with throughout all of this is why? Like, why would the US risk starting World War III? Seems kind of like a big risk to take. But there's kind of 2 things I'm fairly clear on. The first thing is the fact that someone somewhere, I think, is going to be making a lot of money off of this. War, unfortunately, does make people money. It also, the orange guy seems to have this kind of thing where he likes to sort of fix problems that he started and like flip-flop back and forth between things. Like he did that with the stock market too. I mean, he's a Gemini after all, so it's kind of whatever. But the second thing, aside from the money aspect of it, is, remember what I said at the start of the video about scandals and the leaking of information? I do think that in time we will see some things coming to light regarding this period of time, right? Regarding the motivations behind people in power, right? And it's going to be fairly messed up, fairly catastrophic, right? And it could even be something that inspires revolution. It could even be something that groundbreaking and that noteworthy. And so even though I think we will become aware of the motivations behind this in the near future, maybe around the time of Donald Trump's Pluto opposition, when Pluto gets to roughly 10 degrees of Aquarius, maybe we'll hear some things then. But, I also can't help but also wonder about the environmental impacts of such actions. We have Neptune in Aries, and Neptune in Aries, I think, is really going to illuminate and kind of bring awareness to just how devastating the impacts of these wars are going to be on the environment. Aries, remember, Aries is very like hot-headed, temperamental, and Neptune is associated with the sea. So I do think we're going to see a lot more, issues with the sea, with like hurricanes, with storms. I think even what we're seeing right now with regards to the heat waves, like the very humid, very dense heat waves we've been seeing, are also kind of indicative of this transit. And it's only going to get worse from here. So yeah, not the most like hopeful video ever. I do think it'll provide, we are living through times that will be illuminated and we will have a sense of clarity on the things going on, but it is looking a little bit bleak. I mean, I do think that there's always hope for a future. I just think that there's oftentimes a lack of foresight when it comes to all these issues that humanity faces. There's just not that ability to like learn from past patterns. And I think that astrology is really useful because it helps with that. It helps you learn from past mistakes and see what might potentially come up in the future.